Welcome back. You're watching Monday Special. Remember to talk to us on hashtag Monday Special KE. Text us on 22422. We're talking about bullying. Waidaka in Meru says, my nephew was severely bullied at secondary school in Meru, even to an extent where he was admitted at hospital. We had to transfer him from that school to another school. He's now traumatized and it has affected his studies. That's just one of many SMSs that are coming in on how safe is your child in school. Let's take a look at a clip. This is a story that we actually aired, and this was about a Form 1 boy in Nandi who is now blind in one eye. He's 16 years old. He was allegedly bullied by Form 4 students. Those are pictures there of the story that we ran. He says he's and of course he is traumatized. All he wants is his eyesight restored through treatment so that he can return to school. There is the picture of the boy who was injured. This is allegedly due to bullying. The 4 boys alleged to be behind the assault were charged before the Kapsabet Law Court for bullying, each released on a 20,000 shilling bond, with their case coming up for hearing soon. So that's an extreme case of bullying, and now we bring it back to the panelists. Let's start with Dr. Catherine Mutisia. Very briefly, what is bullying? What is bullying?
Yes, bullying are acts of aggression, which are meant, they are intentional, and they are meant to either make the other person get discomfort or harm them. Yeah. And they are of various forms. It could be verbal insults, or it could be physical, or it could be emotional. All right. And it's very rampant in schools. Actually, a research which was done showed that in Kenya we had very high rates compared to even the West. Really? Rates of up to 80%.
In different schools? In different schools. 80% in many of these schools?
Yes.
Why is it so rampant in Kenya? Maybe let's look at the Kenyan context. What do you think, as a psychiatrist and as someone who's dealt with children who have been bullied, what is it that's creating this trend?
Yeah, you know, research has shown that children who bully, probably at home, they are disciplined through very aggressive means. And so when they get out, they vent out. And again, children who are criticized a lot, probably they are not performing well in school, so they are likely to bully the person who is performing well. People with low self-esteem. So when somebody has been hurt, if they are not assisted, then they are likely to hurt other people.
Okay, they take it out.
Even children who have been bullied are likely to bully others.
Especially if they don't get the counseling that they need.
Yes.
Very shortly, we'll be talking to Mr. Mohamed Mwenyepembe from the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, just to get a view on policies and learn about the Basic Education Act as well. For now, we want to talk to Michael. Michael, you experienced bullying in high school. Tell us about that. When was the first time you experienced it and what happened?
Thank you, Janet. Actually, the first time I experienced bullying was in school. It's like a ritual nowadays. It's like a rite of passage. When you are getting into high school, in Form 1, you have to be bullied, monolization, so they called it. So I can remember when I was in high school, actually, I used to be called by the Form 4s, and I used to go to every single dorm, rapping for them every other night after prep. So to me, that at first didn't occur as bullying, but as time progressed, I found out that I had short hours of sleep, and this affected me in class because I used to doze in class, and when the teachers would ask me why am I dozing in class, I had no clear explanation as to this, because I didn't want to speak against the Form 4s who would in turn now come back to me afterwards.
Did it ever get physical?
Yes, it did, but this was not until Form 2, actually, when some guy approached me and at 10 o'clock after prep, this guy brought shirts and trousers for me to wash them for him at that particular time. So when I relented, the guy got abusive and actually got to a point of beating me up. Now, this was because the guy thought he was somehow immune to the repercussions that come about with you bullying someone in school, because his dad was, I think, as OCPD in some area. So he felt like he's above the law in school. So he was doing it openly, thinking that the teachers would do nothing to him.
But they did something?
They actually did, but not really, because he was actually supposed to go for suspension, of which he did not. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
So
you said you got bullied to a point where you were even ill. I think you even told your mom, I'm not going to continue with school. What was your lowest point during that experience?
I think you get to a point where you feel out of place, where you feel like you do not belong here. Because I remember this also brought me to seek counseling from a counseling teacher who unfortunately passed away last week, but due to cancer. But I sought counseling sessions for her every day after classes, after 4 o'clock, But this got to a point where I had to go home after every weekend so that I could spend some time at home because I was physically getting ill.
Okay.
And I had to be under medication. Yes.
All right, we'll come to that. We'll talk a little bit more about what it is that you did and how you recovered and coped. Because you tell me you stayed in the same school because you were unable to be transferred. Mr. Munyipembe, I know that you want to bring out some issues or some of the elements of the act, but this bullying or moralization, it's often very severe, it's widespread, illegal. It's somehow considered a rite of passage, like Michael has said. I'm sure as a ministry you're aware, but how or why does it continue?
Now, thank you very much. First of all, actually, bullying varies from a school to a school. At the same time, it depends on the management. Because when a student is leaving primary, he's supposed to be accommodated very well. Because he's leaving a family to go to a new family. And that's where that one is supposed to be received very well. Because any psychological or physical torture will make that child disappear from the school. And that's why when a child immediately after closing, when a child tells the parent, I'm not going, it means the parent is supposed to put a question mark. But actually, why do we say so? Principals are qualified, and they are the ones who are quality assurance and standard officers, number one. They are also the managers. Where the management is really very good, there is no bullying. And I can bet there are schools which parents are actually fighting for. Look at Alliance, look at Mangu. People are fighting to go there. If there was bullying, they would not go. I mean, they wouldn't be going. So the issue is actually is the base. Where is the foundation?
In the school.
In the school. And at the same time, you will find actually bullying may be rampant where the principals or the head teachers are not staying in the compound, where the teachers are not staying. Because there is that grace period that they can do and then disappear.
So all the same, when you hear these cases like the boy from Nandi, for example, which you said has gone to the law courts, sometimes, even this case aside, where there's a hearing that's pending, you find that the bullies are not suspended. Or, you know, it's almost like there's leeway. Now, I know you've explained that the school itself should take responsibility, but why is it that we see in some cases these students continue to study where they are without any repercussions? Therefore, there's going to be repeat incidents happening. Why do we see that? How come we don't see harsher punishment for these students?
Maybe, if you can allow me, I would like to quote from the Basic Education Act 2013. If you go to clause 36, which I've carried here, said, no pupil shall be subjected to torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment in any manner, whether physical or psychological. So in other words, actually, if there is any bullying, there are systems which are in place in the school. And one of the systems is actually that we have disciplinary committee, which is headed by the deputy principal. And this is where people, they are supposed to come out. But if somebody does not explain, even the parent doesn't explain, they may not know. But when they come out, in fact, that is the first step. But when it becomes severe, you know, sometimes it is a police case. Because, you know, there are stages. If the first stage is the disciplinary committee in the school, second stage is the board of management, which used to be called the board of governors. Then we have the county education board. If it goes beyond, then it goes to the ministry. Because we have the directorate of department and, of course, the tribunal.
Let me bring you in, Michael. In your case, were you aware of that committee in your school? Were you aware that there were steps to be taken to report your bullying? Did you know that?
Actually, no.
Okay.
And I don't think even the teachers took time to make us aware of certain things as far as bullying is concerned, because as the clause states, no one should be subjected to any form of bullying, either physical or psychological. But I think, as from my story, it also depends on, with the school, they also kind of look at the social status from where one comes from. So you find that maybe there's a guy who's from a less privileged family, and the bully is from a high functioning social class. So you find that when the guy bullies the less fortunate guy, the school does not take the required precautions because they're in fear of losing this guy.
Were your teachers aware of what was happening to you?
Not really. Only, I think, only 2 teachers were aware of what was happening to me.
You were scared of opening up?
Yes, I was scared of opening up because, again, the teachers would go and approach the bullies, who would in turn now come back for me later. All right,
which, Dr. Mutisi, I think you can, it's self-explanatory that we find that a lot. They don't report it. The child doesn't report it. But is this more harm than good? I mean, tell us a little bit about that psychology.
Normally, the bullied students are scared of the bully, and so they don't want to report. In fact, we have had cases where a child comes home they have a wound on their face. They say, I was hit when we were playing football, only for the parent to learn later that this was bullying. So it is very good for the parents and the teachers to have an interaction, to have a relationship, so that if anything happens and the parents are not aware, then the teachers can actually communicate. Because for one, each school needs to make it clear that bullying is not acceptable and there should be consequences. Because when these children are left with the teachers, that is the only parent they can, authority they can report to. So again, even the schools should have mechanisms of noticing any bullying which is going on. Like I've seen some private schools have CCTV cameras and they check them every week and they can see incidences. So even if some were not reported in the playground, in the classrooms, they can actually notice because a child might have been bullied and then they were not able to report because they were scared of the bully.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so we've heard a little bit about that. We had, for instance, Mr. Munyipembe, in Gilgil, Koelel High School, I think this was in about 2008, a student was bullied to the point where he died. That's the story that came out. Until today, we haven't really heard of any decisive action that was taken in that case. That's one case, one of many. So just, again, take us through. I know you've talked about the fact that there's different stages of reporting, but when you don't hear anything being done, it can discourage people from believing in the school systems. So what can you say about that? The fact that since 2008, nothing has been done about this case. It kind of just disappeared.
The issue is actually that I said actually there are cases which can be solved at school level, and those are at board of management level. But if it is a serious case, like the one you have mentioned, if it's a police case, then that one is supposed to be followed. The only thing which they may want is actually evidence, and the evidence can come from there. And why I'm saying so is because now in schools we have what you call students' governance, where students are supposed to talk openly on their own. Some schools have even opened a way of sitting in a kamukunji, where they normally unveil all what they have to the principal. So this is where somebody is supposed to come out with the evidence, because you know you can actually talk of that, but it's also good to find out what evidence is there. But bullying, I'm not refuting. It's only that now it used to be rampant, but because of those policies, now it has gone. Because if we have the student governance, for example, there is a cabinet secretary there, there is a whatever, these students are supposed to sit together, give for those without even being known.
You're saying it was rampant, but I think from what the doctor is saying, is it getting...
Rates are still high.
The rates are still high. So
okay, the studies have not compared the years.
With previous, but...
The rates we have are still high.
To date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe the severity is reducing, but it's still there.
It's only that I have to say, actually, the mechanisms now put in place. Because, you know, sometimes actually it's also good for somebody to be informed. Because, you know, you can't micromanage a school. It's like a family. A school has a program from the time students are waking up and whatever. And bullying can also in form of food, in form of stealing clothes. But there are those minor ones which can be reported. And when they is severe, we have a structure. A structure, even the county director is there, the DO is there, all through.
We'll come, when we come back, before we take a break, because we'll come back on that and talk even more about signs to look out for and what you can do as a parent. There's an SMS here from Vicky Wavinya from South Sea. She says, I just feel like sharing my story from high school. I went through hell because of my physical appearance. My head is burnt because of bullying. I've never had hair grow on my head because of that. I was humiliated, bullied, made fun of. I hated myself, and in Form 3, I was saved thrice from trying to commit suicide. It was my saddest experience that I've never shared with anyone, not even my parents. Someone else here, Jane from Kisi, says, thanks for the debate. My son attended only first term in Form 1. Since then, he's refused to go to school. Please advise me. We have a lot of SMSs. We're going to try and see if we can answer some of the questions. 22422, leave your name and location. And of course, keep texting us, keep tweeting us using the hashtag Monday Special KE. We'll come back in just a moment. For me about teachers. A lot of parents are writing and saying, my child was bullied by a teacher, my child was bullied by the prefects. We'll come to that in just a moment. Let's take a look at another story that we highlighted not too long ago, this time in Isiolo, a girl who was bullied in Isiolo Girls Secondary School. And 15 girls were suspended for attacking and injuring their schoolmate. They're the injuries that the girl is showing on her body. They were apparently accusing their schoolmate of behaving in a manner that they deemed un-Islamic. The 17-year-old girl was accused of going against Islamic teachings by participating in an inter-school modeling competition. This was a report filed by Salim Bilu some time back. So that's a look at that story. And we are talking about bullying in school. How safe is your child in school? And I think I'd like to take this discussion a little bit more to the teachers, because this is what I'm seeing a lot. Let's take a look at one SMS here. Bullying is not only in secondary schools. My son went through bullying last year in class 1. This was one of the best private schools in the country. I complained to the class teacher, but she couldn't do anything about it. She lost her job anyway. His performance was so bad, we changed schools and everything changed. But someone else here is saying that bullying is happening with teachers especially. I had to hastily transfer my primary child from boarding school because of harassment by teachers. The child is well behaved, was new in school, and held positions 3, 2, and 1. Without provocation, a male teacher started harassing the child. The deputy head teacher intervened. It worsened the matter as 2 more male teachers joined in. You know, they would walk in at night during prep, harass him, and walk away. He's now in another school, and he's happy. Mr. Munyipembe, let's look at this scenario, which so many parents are complaining about. The same people, perhaps, who are tasked with safeguarding the students' lives are the ones who are bullying. So what happens in that scenario? I think what we're trying to bring out of this discussion is these students who are suffering in silence, cannot trust the prefects, they can't trust the teachers. What are they meant to do? Who can they trust? What can they do?
Thank you very much. First of all, you talked about a private school. I want to tell you, according to our Basic Education Act, all schools belong to the Cabinet Secretary. There is no student who is private. It's only an institution. And even when you see KCP certificate, KCSE, there is no certificate written private. So all of them belong to the Cabinet Secretary. Now, when it comes to the issue of teachers, teachers have got their employer, which is TSC. Now, if a student cannot be able to explain and the parents are aware, these people, in fact, they write to our Cabinet Secretary, they write to our PS, they write even to our Education Secretary. When they write, this is where also quality assurance and standards officers actually normally go. And we find a way of getting ample information. Once we write, we write a report. And this report, and in fact we have a way of getting information from the kids without being victimized. Because actually you can tell them to write the likes and dislikes of the school than just asking them openly, because they can be victimized. Now once we get that on, we compile. And when we write a report, it goes to the various stakeholders, to the Teacher Service Commission, to the audit if it's about funds, to the Board of Management. So, and then from there now, each area, there are some actions which are supposed to be taken.
How long does this process take?
This one actually immediately after conducting standard assessment, we normally give an executive summary, which is actually very fast. Then the detailed report. Just in order, yes, and we normally follow ODD, observation, discussion, documentation. If we say it is actually like this, we have to justify, because you can't just give fallacious statement.
So you're saying that if a student is feeling victimized, if they're being bullied, they can actually write it out in a subtle way where they're not victimized. This is across the board. If a student right now watching this show is being bullied severely, is afraid to talk, because we've just heard from Michael and Dr. Mutisia, because of fear, you're advising them to write a letter to a particular authority. Is that what you're saying?
But the first trust is the principal. And in the principal, we have what we call suggestion box. You can write just a note and put it there for the principal to take action. Now, if it is not taken action, then it's supposed to be written to the ministry. Because sometimes, all right, we may go during our routine, but you know, actually, there is a policy. How many times do you go to a school, depending on the number of officers? But actually, immediately, because the principal is supposed to take that. Even some principals even normally invite us to assist in the administration. Because it's not a matter of actually going to be actually policing. We are colleaguing. Those are our colleagues. And I told you, principals are quality assurance and standard officers, number one, because these are their...
And if the principals are bullies? If the principals themselves...
principals are bullies, that is where now we come in, Teacher Service Commission comes in, and all that. Because that report is normally conspicuous and it can be taken anywhere.
Michael, do you think this, and I'll also want to get your opinion, Dr. Mutisia, these systems in place? Do you trust them? Do you trust that they can work? Have you heard of them working for any student who's undergone bullying?
Thank you very much, Janet. I'd agree with Mr. Mwanyipembe for the suggestion box being there in school for the students to air out their grievances without feeling victimized. And I agree with him when he says that the principal is the first trust in school. But you've asked him a very good question. What if the principal himself is a bully or herself is a bully? Now, you find that many incidences where we have students or sponsors or guardians or parents of students approaching the government is in incidences where you find that the bullied student comes from, again, a good, a well-doing family from a good social background. You find that their parents are able, they have that voice of directly approaching the ministry. But when it comes to the students from the less privileged families, and I say this because during my time in Form 1 and Form 2, my family was a little bit struggling with finances. So this came about as a lack of voice for my parents, because I was undergoing bullying. But again, I will tell them some, but I will refute them from visiting the school, because again they have no voice. They go there and the students, the school will,
Okay, but what do you think can be done as a student or as a former student? I mean, you said it got so bad, sometimes you thought of suicide, sometimes you just thought, I want to be done, but you're better now. Now, looking from the outside in, he's talked about the principal, and I agree with Mr. Mwanyipembe, it should be that. But as a student, looking from a student's eyes, what would you hope to see to be able to allow students to voice their concerns without being victimized? You can briefly tell us so that we can move the discussion along. What would you want to see?
Okay. I think the teachers, and specifically the highest management in schools, should present themselves as approachable to the students. Because it's only when the students feel friendly towards the teachers, or feel that the teachers are friendly and open towards them, that they will comfortably air out their grievances. This in turn will now cause it will now pose on the teachers to act accordingly as to dealing with the students that have been mentioned as bullies.
So the teacher should be more approachable, which is a very good point.
And apart from that, the teachers should also act accordingly. When a student approaches a teacher on a certain concern, the teachers should act on it.
On and not ignore it.
But because I've seen students...
Sorry, let Dr. Mutisia, then you can step in. I wanted to give her comments before you step in. Please give your...
I've seen students who have decided to take law into their hands because they, even when they report, they feel that the teachers are likely to side with the bullies. For example, if it's a student who is very good in class or a student who is very good in sports, then they feel like this student is indispensable. So they take the law in their hands and they bully others in revenge. But if these children were to be guaranteed that if they report, something is going to be done, so even the fear would be removed. But when you know you will report, nothing will happen, they'll come and bully you more, then that's when now there's disorganization.
All right, Doctor, and of course, before, as we wind up at some point, I really want you to talk about the signs to look out for very briefly, but thank you for that point.
No, there was a point actually which my brother here, Michael, actually talked about actually some parents being well off and others being poor. In fact, in school, that's why we have free day secondary and free primary, is because of the fair treatment. Everybody is supposed to be treated equally. And even when it comes to that, they are all putting uniform. So, but, you can even actually find that in some schools, they've even forbidden this idea of actually days, open days, where some people come with open catering and others have nothing to eat. This is what the ministry actually come up to make everybody to be fair. Because when somebody is celebrating in a manner with outside catering, somebody has not even been visited. And you'll find that this is actually the principle that actually doing so. So the issue of actually that the parents who are well off are listened to more in the ministry. That does not arise. In fact, we normally listen to everybody, all children. In fact, whether one is poor or whatever. And at the end, what counts is other results.
All right, we've completely run out of time. Very briefly from all of you, I'd like to get your closing remarks. Doctor, with you, it will be combined very briefly with signs to look out for the parents, for their children if they're being bullied. Let's start with you, Mr. Mwanyipembe. Your closing remarks for this discussion.
In fact, my closing remarks, first of all, I want to read part 5 of 35, which says, pupils shall be given appropriate incentives to learn and complete basic education. We are talking of transition, we are talking of completion, we are talking of access, and we are actually trying, the ministry has done so many ways actually in normally retaining these people. But we should know, parents should have the mechanism of actually reporting. Because like now, some incidents when you report to us, until we know them, and we are supposed to know them from there. We have bodies like the Teachers Service Commission deals with the teachers themselves. We have the ministry which is giving resources.
Can I interrupt you? How often is this monitored? We're really running out of time, but you talk about the Teachers Service Commission, you talk about them getting in these reports, even if the principal is the one who's allegedly a bully. But how often is this monitored to ensure that it completely comes to an end? It almost sounds like it's not done as often as it should be.
No, because actually we have a policy. Like, for example, a primary school is supposed to be assessed every term.
Every term?
Yes, and a secondary school once per 3 years, because you must be given time to implement. But we have what you call the fire brigade, we have investigative, we have special measure. Now these ones can be done on daily basis depending on the information which you normally get.
All right,
but actually, even we normally act on reports in the media. When you people actually say it is like this, actually, the cabinet secretary, the principal secretary, the education secretary actually makes organizes to get for us to get that information, and we act on the spot.
All right, Mr. Munyipembe, thank you for that. Dr. Mutisia, your closing remarks and quickly about the signs to look out for.
Yeah, things to watch out for. If a child comes home and says, I have no friends in school, or I don't want to go back to that school, then you need to find out why. And even as you talk to your children, it's good to ask whether anybody is hurting them, how was school, and get to know. But again, we also see children who get what we call somatization. A child is complaining of stomachache, of headaches. When you take them to the doctor, nothing physical can be found. So those are also lead signs. We've also had students who have gone to the extent of being suicidal, getting depression. So those are things to watch out. When a child comes with a bruise, don't just assume. Even if they tell you they fell when they were playing football, it will be good to check. It's also good for parents to have a good relationship with the teachers so that they can confirm. If the child says, oh, I got injured when I was playing, then you can actually confirm.
That's really
when
good
you see your child getting, losing self-esteem or becoming sad, you need to find out why.
All right. Closing remarks, Doctor. I know you've talked about the signs, very good signs to look out for. Your closing remarks to parents and to even the students who are being bullied.
Yeah, I would encourage students who are being bullied to talk out and not just keep quiet. Because if you don't do that, then many years to come, you will be saying, I wish I stood up for myself. So it is good to say it and make sure, even if the school is not acting, go to the next line, talk to your parents. Even if your parents are not acting, we've been told here you can even write to the TSC, you can write to the Ministry of Education. So don't keep quiet, because later on you'll be regretting, why did I not stand up for myself? And it can become chronic, and we know that people who have been hurt are likely to hurt others. So if you don't heal, then you're likely to pass it on to other people.
All right, thank you so much. Very key advice. Michael, first of all, how has it impacted you today, the bullying that you experienced, and what do you want to say to people who are going through the same thing?
Once again, thank you, Janet. Before that, I'd like to add on what Dr. Mutisia has said. I think also parents should look out for their students' performance in school. Like, for instance, I got into school and I was very well performing, but with time you find that the students' progress in academics deteriorates with time. So I think it's upon the teachers and the parents to really be keen on following up on the students' academic records. And for the students who are being bullied, I think the best thing to do in school first is to approach the more open and the more friendly feeling person in school, which is the counseling teachers, because again, here you can open up anything you have to them, because I felt secure opening up to my counseling teacher, and that's how I actually got even to get the courage of even approaching the principal at a point. Yeah, so I think it had, as to what effect it had on me, I'm with ACAD Education Group now, and this is one of the things I do now in terms of giving back to these schools. I train a lot on peer mentorship when I'm talking to students, and in peer mentorship I introduced the idea of families in school, where you have a big brother, you have a small brother, so you have to look out for each other.
And that's a program within ACAD?
No, that's actually, I'm in ACAD, but that's my own initiative within ACAD. So I find it because I get a lot of access to schools to do trainings to both the teachers and mentor the students to introduce this concept of peer mentorship, which we have now families.
Do you have a Facebook page or something people can get in touch with?
Yeah, we do have a Facebook page as ACAD. Our Facebook page name is ACAD Africa. AKAD Africa. Yes, and we also do have a website, www.acadeducationafrica.com.
All right. Thank you all so much. I mean, this is, someone else is saying, Janet, I wish you had introduced this topic during the holidays when a lot of students are watching. So many questions, so much feedback, but that's all we can do for now. I want to really thank my panelists, the three of you, for shedding light on this issue and encouraging students and parents as well. We'll be back with Hussein Mohammed and with some of your feedback in just a moment.